We're now ready to create a new project and officially begin the hands-on portion of the tutorial. To create a new project, click the plus button or press Command N on your keyboard to bring up the project settings window. In this tutorial, you'll be creating a movie trailer for a documentary about Civil War reenactors. In the name field, enter Weekend Warriors. Projects are always associated with events. Choose the reenactors event from the default event pop-up. This is the event we created in the previous lesson. The next section, labeled Video Properties, determines the video format, resolution, and frame rate of the project. Final Cut Pro X allows you to work with multiple video formats in the same project. However, each project can only have one working format. As you can see from the default, the video properties will be set automatically based on the first clip you edit into the project. This means that if you have a 1080p 2398 clip and it's the first clip added to the project's video properties will inherit the clip's video properties. Any clip or clips you edit into the project thereafter will be auto-conformed to the 1080p 2398 project properties. You can also force the video properties of a project by clicking the Custom button. Just choose a format, resolution, and frame rate from the pop-up menus, then click OK. This option would be the choice if a client or network predetermined your delivery format. Let's choose the first option, set automatically based on the first video clip. Under Audio and Render Properties, your project will be assigned a default audio channel configuration, sample rate, and rendering format. If you need to change any of these, click the Custom button, then use the pop-up menus to create your own render properties for each category. Choose the default option, then click OK. An empty project opens in the timeline with the name you just assigned appearing in the upper left. To see the video and audio properties assigned to the project, press Command 0 to return to the project library, select the project, then click the Inspector button or press Command 4. The Properties Inspector tells you the video format, frame rate, and audio configuration of the selected project, as well as what drive the project lives on and the date it was created. You're also told what events the project is referencing and on which drives. Press Command 4 to close the inspector. The first step in building our rough cut is to look at our clips in the viewer, then begin making selections around the portions we want to use in our project. In the event library, click the disclosure triangle next to the Reenactors event to reveal the contents. Select the Group Smart Collection, then select the Motley Crew clip. Make sure your event browser is in List View. Whenever you select a clip in List View, the clip's film strip appears at the top of the event browser. Placing your mouse pointer inside the film strip, you can skim through your video looking for content you might want to use in your project. As you skim, the video appears in the viewer to the right. The skimmer is visually represented by the thin vertical red line under your mouse pointer. There's also a thin vertical white line called the playhead, and it's often used as an alternate clip reference point. For example, skim to the right until the three soldiers are centered in the viewer. Click once and the playhead moves to the skimmer position. Now skim away and you'll see the playhead stays fixed at the frame you clicked on. Skim to the left until the first three soldiers are centered in the frame. Move your mouse pointer outside the film strip and the viewer displays the frame at the playhead. Move your mouse back into the film strip and the viewer displays the frame at the skimmer. Using the skimmer and playhead is a great way to compare two different frames in the same shot. We'll be looking at the skimmer and playhead relationship in more detail later in the lesson. When a clip is selected, a yellow boundary or border appears around the clip. This is called the selection range. To deselect a clip, click in the empty gray area around the film strip. Whenever you click on the film strip, the entire clip is selected by default. But let's say you only wanted to select a portion of the clip. Skim to the frame you want the selection to start on, then hold down the Option key. A drag icon appears. Drag to the right and a selection range will be created from the current skimmer position. As you drag, the selection boundary widens and a tooltip informs you how long the selection range is. To select a playback option, choose Playback from the View menu. As you can see, there are a number of options. You can play around the current skimmer position, play from the beginning of the selection, play full screen, and so on. I'll let you experiment with these on your own, as they're self-explanatory. Let's try a few of the playback options using keyboard shortcuts. Press Command L to turn on looping. Then press the / key, which is also the key with the question mark. Only the content within the range plays back. Then the clip loops when the skimmer reaches the end of the range. Press Command L to turn off looping. Let's look at an alternate and faster way to create the selection. Click on the clip to select it and press Shift-I to move the skimmer to the beginning of the range. Press your spacebar to begin playback. When you see the frame you want the selection to start on, press I. When you see the frame you want the selection to end on, press O. You can modify the selection range by dragging on either end of the selection boundary. There's one more thing I want to show you before we begin making selections on the clips we plan on using in our movie trailer. With your mouse inside the film strip, press Ctrl-Y to bring up the skimmer info window. This window is helpful when you need to see the keywords assigned to your clip as well as the clip's timecode information. To turn it off, press Ctrl-Y again. You'll also find this command in the View menu. In the event library, locate the Drills clip and select it. This clip is inside the Group Smart collection. Play a few seconds.
1, 1, 1, 2, 1.
We want to use a few seconds of this clip to establish the military nature of our trailer. We'll create a selection around the sergeant's marching cadence, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1. Skim over the clip to scrub the audio. If you're not hearing the audio scrub, press Shift-S to turn it on. Position your skimmer at 2 seconds and 5 frames. The timecode for the clip will appear in the dashboard window in the center of the interface. Press I to set the beginning of the selection. Skim to the point after he finishes the drill cycle at about 4 seconds and 13 frames, and press O to set the selection out point. Press the / key to preview the selection.
1, 1, 2, 1.
Let's add this first clip to the timeline using the familiar drag and drop method. Position your pointer anywhere inside the selection boundary. A tiny hand will reinforce that you're about to perform a drag operation. Now click and drag downward into the dark horizontal strip in the timeline. When you see the green plus icon, release your mouse. If there are no clips in the timeline, Final Cut Pro will just assume you want the clip to be at the head of the project and place it there automatically. Let's zoom into the timeline a bit more. Click anywhere in the timeline to select it and press Command+ to zoom in. For our next clip, let's find an action shot of the Civil War battle. Locate the Selects keyword collection, then select the Confederacy firing line clip. You'll recall this is one of the 2 clips we defined a keyword range for in the previous lesson. So in essence, the clip has already been cut down using keywords. In the toolbar, you'll notice a cluster of 3 buttons. Position your mouse pointer over each one, and a tooltip will appear giving you a brief description of the type of edit they perform. Moving left to right, they're labeled as follows. Connect the selected clip to the primary storyline, insert the selected clip into the primary storyline or the selected storyline, and append the selected clip to the primary storyline or selected storyline. Storylines are Final Cut Pro's new visual metaphor for working with your clips in the timeline. We'll flesh out the storyline concept and how it relates to your workflow later in the lesson. To edit the Confederacy firing line clip to the end of the previous clip, click the Append the Selected Clip to the Primary Storyline button or press E on your keyboard. This edit command will always place the selected clip in the Events browser at the end of the last clip in the storyline. This is a tremendously fast editing feature because it frame accurately places the clip at the end of the last clip, regardless of where the current playhead is. For our third clip, let's use an interview. Select the Interviews keyword collection and locate the First Texas 2-shot. For this clip, we'll set an out point on the fly. Position your skimmer just before the sergeant says, "We win 90% of the battles." This occurs at timecode 1 second and 11 frames.
Of course.
Then press I to set the start of the range. For this clip, we're going to set the out point on the fly. Press your spacebar and listen for when he says, "We just lose a war." Then press the O key to close the range.
We win 90% of the battles. We just lose the war.
Their excuse was, well, there's only...
Press the E key to append this clip to the storyline. Click into the timeline to make it active. You'll notice the gray area around the clips become a lighter shade of gray. Click back into the event browser and you'll see the timeline gets darker. You can quickly toggle back and forth between the events browser and the timeline using keyboard shortcuts. Command 2 takes you to the timeline and Command 1 takes you to the event browser. With the timeline active, let's play back what we've assembled so far. Press your home key, then the spacebar.
1, 2, 1, fire!
We win 90% of the battles. We just lose the war.
To navigate through your clips in the timeline, you can use the skimmer, which is often the fastest way to locate your content. However, if you prefer traditional methods like JK&L shuttling, you can do that as well.
2, 1, fire!
We win 90% of the battles.
To move one frame forward or reverse, use the left and right arrow keys. To move 10 frames forward or reverse, hold down the Shift key and use the left and right arrow keys. To navigate by timecode, click once in the center of the dashboard or press Ctrl P. Enter the absolute timecode value you want to jump to. For example, by typing 5:15, the playhead will jump to 5 seconds and 15 frames. You can also jump the playhead by relative amounts. Let's say you wanted to move the playhead 5 frames later or 5 frames earlier from the current playhead position. Press Ctrl P again and type a plus before the number 5 to move the playhead 5 frames later, or type a minus before the number 5 to move the playhead 5 frames earlier. You can also use your up and down arrow keys to move the playhead to each edit point. The playhead always moves to the first frame of each clip as indicated by the L bracket that appears in the lower left of the viewer. To see the last frame of the previous clip, press the left arrow key. To fit your clips to the current window size, press Shift-Z. To zoom into a clip at the current skimmer position, press Command+. To zoom out, press Command-. Like previous versions of Final Cut Pro, you can use the playhead to scrub through your timeline to view your clip content. The playhead is represented by this thin vertical white line with the down-facing arrow at the top. You can either click and drag on the arrow, or you can click anywhere inside the gray time ruler to move the playhead to a new location. The viewer window updates with the frame at the current playhead position. However, unlike previous versions of Final Cut Pro, you can also use the skimmer to view your clip content. The skimmer is represented by a thin vertical red line that also allows you to move through your clips to view them, but does not require you to click before you drag. You simply drag. You can skim from anywhere in the timeline. One additional difference between these two viewing methods is that skimming will allow you to hear your audio as you skim, whereas scrubbing the playhead will not. If you're not hearing the audio, make sure there's a check mark next to Audio Skimming in the View menu. If you're coming from previous versions of Final Cut Pro, the relationship between the playhead and the skimmer may take a little getting used to. As you've seen, the skimmer is fluid, allowing you to freely and quickly traverse the clip content in your timeline, whereas the playhead is somewhat fixed until you click and drag on it or play back your project. Often the skimmer position and the playhead position are one and the same. Skim to the frame where the soldiers are firing their weapons. Click once on the clip and the playhead will jump to the skimmer position. Let's try this again. Skim to any frame on the first Texas 2 shot, then click once on the clip to move the playhead to the skimmer position. Now skim away from the current playhead position and you'll see the playhead remains fixed at the frame you just clicked on. What's especially cool about this is the playhead becomes a sort of visual bookmark, allowing you to skim or browse for other content while keeping your place. Move your mouse into the event browser and notice the frame that appears in the viewer is the one at the current playhead position. Now move your mouse back into the timeline and the skimmer's current position is now displayed in the viewer. Move it out again and the playhead frame reappears in the viewer. This feature allows you to quickly compare two areas of your timeline. There are a lot of ways this feature might be used. For example, you might want to compare a color-corrected shot at the playhead position with another shot at the skimmer position, or you might want to compare two different shots to see how they might cut together. Let's try this now. Skim to the drills clip, then move your mouse into the event browser area, then back again. Doing this, you can see how the Union soldiers' group shot looks when juxtaposed with the two-shot of the Confederate soldiers. If you want, you can turn off skimming and only work with the playhead to view your timeline clips. Click the skimming button in the toolbar, or better yet, press the S key to toggle it on or off. Let's leave skimming enabled for now. You can also disable or enable audio skimming using this button. Press Shift S to toggle it on or off. Let's rearrange the current shot order in the timeline. In the toolbar, click on the button with the blue arrow. A pop-up menu is revealed with a bevy of editorial tools. In time, we'll look at each of these. However, the tool we're interested in at the moment is the selection tool. This is the default tool and the one you'll be using most often for manipulating and affecting your clips in the timeline. While we're here, notice the keyboard shortcuts that are assigned for each tool. For legacy Final Cut Pro users, many of these shortcuts you should already be familiar with. Select the selection tool and place your pointer over the first Texas 2-shot clip. Click and drag the clip to the left until the left edge of the clip you're moving snaps to the edit point of the first and second clips. First, you'll see a vertical blue insertion bar at the edit point. Then the second and third clips will rearrange themselves, giving you clear visual feedback on what's about to occur upon releasing your mouse. Now release your mouse, and just like that, the clips are rearranged. Take a few moments and play around with the rearranging of these three clips, placing each one earlier or later in time. You can undo any of your steps by pressing Command Z on your keyboard. When you're finished experimenting, make sure your clip order is as follows: drills, first Texas 2-shot, and Confederacy firing line.